In this video, I'll demonstrate how to use the PND, that's the percentage of non-overlapping data, which is a commonly used statistic in single-case design research. The PND is really the most commonly used measure of effectiveness of single-case designs, and is just sort of one data point of evidence about the commonality of the PND. I'd refer you to this article by Magan, O'Keefe, and Johnson, 2011. What they did is they did a survey of other review articles that analyzed single-case design studies, and they found that about 55% of those review articles of single-case design studies used the PND. There were a number of other statistical approaches used by some of the studies, but there were 3, 4, 5 percentage points per approach, whereas the PND was at 55%. So by far, it was the most common statistical approach. And part of that is because it's pretty easy to do. The PND is calculated by counting the number of favorable outcomes in the treatment phase and then dividing that number by the total number of measures in the treatment phase. The baseline sample of measurement points for your single individual provides a single value that's used as the baseline comparison. So it doesn't matter how many measurement points you have during baseline, you're just going to take the best one of those and use that as your comparison value. That value is where you draw the benchmark in judging whether the treatment phase is better than the baseline or not. And as you might imagine, that would make it very susceptible to the presence of an outlier during baseline. I use an example here from this article by Stephen Lenz, where Lenz provides some hypothetical data. Here are the data points from the Lenz article. I took those data points and dropped them into Excel to get this graph. And you can see that there's a discernible pattern here. During the treatment phase, it appears that the behavior in question is going down. And for this particular hypothetical, we're trying to reduce the behavior in question. So lower scores are better. The direction of the PND, really depends on the goal. If the goal is to reduce the behavior, then you're looking for the lowest score at baseline as your benchmark. If your goal is to increase the behavior, then you use the highest score at baseline as your benchmark. In this case, we're trying to reduce the scores. We're trying to reduce the behavior measures. So step 1, locate the best baseline value. And again, that depends on the direction that you're trying to go. But we're trying to reduce the value, so I'm going to take the lowest baseline measurement point, which is 20. And I insert a line there, a horizontal line. What I'm going to do is I'm going to count every data point from the treatment phase that falls below that line. So step 2, count every treatment phase point that is favorable. And in this case, favorable is lower. So as an example, that's one data point that would be counted as being favorable. And we count them all. Now, if you have a treatment phase data point that falls right on that horizontal line, you don't count it at all. It has to be on the other side of the line, in this case below the line. So when we count these up, there are 15 treatment phase measurement points total, and 8 of these 15 fall below the line. So then the PND is calculated simply by this ratio of 8 over 15, and when you turn that into a percentage, it comes out to be 53.3%. And the question is whether or not that shows a substantial improvement. We can see that there is a trend here. And my goal here, one of the goals for this demonstration, is to help us interpret the magnitude of the PND. If we're going to treat the PND as if it's an effect size, then we want to know what is small, medium, and large. And in this particular instance, we have what looks like a clear pattern of improvement. We have a PND of 53.3%. Should we be impressed by that or not? I'll leave that question hanging, and at the end of the video, I'll answer that. Now, there's also a calculator that you can find online by Kevin Tarlow. I don't have any connection to Tarlow or any of his colleagues, but I like online calculators, and this one is pretty easy to use. So if you just go to the URL that's shown at the top of the screen, you can find it, or if you just Google Tarlow PND calculator, you'll find it. So what you do is you plug in the numbers, and down here I've got the values for the number of baseline measures, the number of treatment phase measures, and the number of treatment phase measures that exceeded the baseline, the best baseline score. And my calculation was 53.3%, so let's see if we get the same thing. These are screenshots, by the way. This is not live action. I used the calculator, took screenshots, and put them into PowerPoint. So we plug in the numbers, and the first one is the number of scores in baseline. The second one is the number of scores in treatment phase. And then the K is the number of treatment phase that were successful. And you can see that the PND is calculated the same. That is to say, the result is the same as what I did using a calculator. So that's good. It also gives us a p-value, and if you go to Tarlow's webpage, there's a citation for an article where he describes the development of the p-value here. I won't go into those details here because I don't want to take that long. But if you're interested to figure that out, you can go and read his article. So p is less than 0.05. I guess we can reject the null hypothesis and say that more of the treatment phase measurement points were in the favorable direction than in the unfavorable direction. The thesis here, of course, is that each time you have a measurement point in treatment phase, you have a 50% chance of going in one direction or the other in terms of its relation to the best baseline measure. So, you know, we would consider this to be a success based on the p-value, but you know, just like the PND itself, we want to know, what does this actually reflect? What is the p-value here really telling us? In order to explore this a little further, I developed a couple of data sets of my own. These are fake data. I just came up with some set of numbers that I thought would look pretty random. I mean, there's a change here from the baseline phase to the treatment phase. It seems to go up at first, but then you've got some scores going back down. And for this hypothetical, let's assume that higher scores are better, so we're trying to improve the scores by raising them. Well, at first it looks like there's some improvement, and then there's a diminishment, and then it's, you know, it looks like it's kind of random. And that's what I wanted to do, is I wanted to have a data set that looked pretty random. Here's the actual data, if you want to plug it in and play with it yourself. And remember, our goal here is to raise the scores, so we place the horizontal line at the highest baseline score. Remember that any treatment phase data point that falls on that line does not count. It has to be above that. So here are the treatment phase scores that are better than baseline. We can count them up. And 8 out of those 13 measures are better than baseline. So the PND is calculated to be 8 over 13, or 61.5%. Well, that sounds good. It's even higher than the previous data set by Lens. Well, I go to Tarlow's calculator, because I want to see what the p-value is. And I plug in the values. The first number, again, is the number of baseline measures, that's 9. Then the number of treatment phase measures, that's 13. And the number of treatment phase measures that exceed the baseline, that's 8. And calculating it out, you can see that I got the same thing here from Tarlow's calculator compared to what I did with the hand calculator. So Tarlow's calculator is pretty cool in the sense that it gives you sort of an automatic value. Of course, you can easily do this just by doing 8 over 13. So there's not a real advantage there. I guess the advantage is the p-value. And the p-value here is very small, 0.003. That would suggest, the traditional interpretation of a p-value is that if the null hypothesis is true, and the null hypothesis here would be that the treatment phase measurement points have a 50% chance of being on either side of that best baseline phase line. Well, the p-value would suggest that this would happen only 3 out of 1,000 times if the null hypothesis is really true. And I sort of questioned that. I questioned the validity of that statistic in this scenario. Well, let's play with some more data and see if, see how it stacks up. So here's another fake data set, and this time I wanted to give an example where there's obviously some improvement in the treatment phase. So we have baseline phase with some random fluctuation, but they seem to be centered around the value of around 12. And then for the treatment phase, you can see that there is an immediate increase, and the increase seems fairly stable. There's a setback, but the setback is temporary, and scores go up again. So, visually, my visual inspection of this data set would be, yeah, the treatment seems to be working. We seem to be seeing a increase. Now, I checked all 3 of these data sets for baseline trend, and there was no baseline trend detected. And then we have our measurement points here, and place the horizontal line at the highest baseline value, again because we're trying to get higher scores. Higher scores are better in this hypothetical. Count the number of treatment phase data points that are above that line. 11 out of 13 of the treatment phase measurement points are better than the baseline. So the PND comes out to be very high, 84.6%. That's pretty good, or so it seems. I mean, this, to my mind, is clear evidence of a treatment phase success based on visual inspection. Plug the data into the Tarlow calculator. We get the same answer, so that's always good to see. And the p-value is 0.0001. So very, very small p-value. So how do we interpret the magnitude of these things? In terms of the interpretation of the PND, Scruggs, Mastropieri, and Casto in 1987 have been credited with originating these benchmarks. And I do have one article by them, by Scruggs, Mastropieri, and Casto in 1987, which does not have these benchmarks in it. They had a second article that same year, which I've been unable to actually get a copy of. And looking on Google Scholar, it's been cited only 8 times. So, I'm not really sure about this, about the benchmark standards here. In fact, going through about 20 articles on single case design research and about 5 books, none of them had these benchmarks in it. So I'm not really sure on how well these benchmarks have been actually accepted, but they seem to be pretty reasonable on, at least on their face. So if we consider 90% PND or above to be highly effective, and 70 to 90% sort of a mid-range, and 50 to 70% sort of questionable effects, anything below 50% would be in the wrong direction. So examination of these, the lens data, it's really questionable. And that one had what I thought was a pretty clear trend. The small or no difference data set that I created that looked pretty random to me had a PND that was higher than the lens data, but still in the questionable range. And then the third example that I had that shows a large difference between baseline and treatment phase still only counts as moderately effective. It doesn't quite reach the high effective. And the p-values here from Tarlow's calculator, I mean, to be honest, they don't seem to reflect the reality of the changes here in the PND. If you play with the calculator a little bit, you'll see that the p-values actually depend very heavily on how many baseline data points there are, which to my mind doesn't really make sense because we only use one baseline data point, the best one, for comparison purposes, and we judge the treatment phase data points based on that one single measurement from baseline that was the best one. So at least by conventional standards, the p-values here don't really seem to match up. The benchmarks here seem to make sense, at least on the surface, although the patterns that we saw in those three different examples don't really seem to match the benchmarks very well. So that should give you an idea of how to calculate the PND. I would not use the p-value from Tarlow. Tarlow, if you're listening, I'm sorry for that, but it just doesn't seem very useful. But the calculation of the PND is easy to use. The problem is, of course, that there are so many different single case design research statistical approaches, and there is no real agreement on how to use them or even how to interpret them. So hopefully the videos I'm putting together will help make some of that make sense. Thanks for watching.